brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys. Suds. It's time for more Suds.
Hello and welcome to this Suds segment. I am good old boy Mike, one of your co-hosts for this Suds segment today. Joining me are good old boy Dave from the Electric Avenue Brewing Company.
Hey Mike, thanks for having me.
And good old boy John.
Hey guys, how we doing?
We have another great episode here. This is part of our show and tell series that we have to share with all of you. And we have a theme song that goes with the series.
Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things.
Bright Kolschen, Belgian wit, and bright raspberry tarts. It was really horrible. I wasn't even close this time around.
I am not making a ringtone of that.
I'm not making that a ringtone. That edition was really bad, huh? Well, those of you that are joining us here for the first time, thank you very much for joining us here for this episode of Sip, Suds, and Smokes. This is a Suds segment. We talk about a lot of things on this show. Everything in life worth discussing happens on this show. And want to thank you for joining us, no matter what outlet you're picking us up on, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and welcome to a lot of our new audience from public radio. So those of you that have joined us, thank you very much. This particular series is show and tell. Each of us have brought a beer to share with each other, and we'll be tasting these beers, and we will be rating them. And if you do not know our Suds ratings, I'll go through them with you briefly here. So our Suds rating number 1, these are Belch ratings too. 1, that sucks, give me anything but a bud. Number 2, was that a belch? Number 3, what a relief. John, I have told you, please, man.
Excuse me.
Number 4, a body should really not make that sound. I have some friends who remain nameless that help me with that sound. Number 5 is listen to that hang time, give me another. So we really have some great beers to share with all of you today. I'm going to tell you what we're tasting so that you can definitely get prepared. So some really great beers all the way across. We're going to talk about Calfkiller Grassroots. This is a brewery out of Sparta, Tennessee, and I look forward to talking about that. Burton Baton from Dogfish Head, and Oculus Dexter Crooked Stave is the other beer we're going to chat about today. So I look forward to each of our hosts introducing their beers, sharing with all of you what we've enjoyed in tasting in all of these, as well as probably plenty of other things along the way, including all of our barbecue favorites, which is now a new episode topic that we're going to get to talk about very soon. We were chatting about before we flipped the mics on. That's about the only thing missing from this show, isn't it?
Sure,
it's just really good quality barbecue, right?
Exactly.
So I think that it would complement actually all of these beers really, really well.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
So it would probably help us be able to think and clearly and talk clearly about beers longer if we were eating barbecue while we're drinking.
Well, that would like defeat the whole purpose, though.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to trip over something. I'm going to sing poorly again, through this, right, Dave?
Well, there you go. Okay, well, if we can have more of that.
I don't know. It's just an ineffective use of the mute button. That's all I think that really boils down to at the end of the day. Well, we definitely have beers that have come from a wide range of geography, as well as the style of beers to talk about today. So up first is going to be good old boy Dave, and he's going to share with you about this beer from Calfkiller.
Great. Well, before I talk about this beer, I'd just like to tell all the listeners that if you want to hear more of good old boy Mike singing, Send emails. All right, we're going to start an online petition. We want a little singing
I
segment.
think they're going to protest. That's what. Please stop singing.
Anyways, so the beer I brought today is the Grassroots IPA from Calfkiller. They're out of Sparta, Tennessee. It's two brothers, the Sergio brothers, Don and Dave, and they are two of the most interesting people you'll ever meet. They're super cool. And this beer, as with all their beers, really exemplifies how they brew and how they live. They don't brew to style. You would not see one of their beers, listed as a classic example of anything.
Would you almost call them like a Dogfish head alternative?
I mean they're very along that style. They do what they want to do. A thought comes in their head.
Yeah.
Hey, this might be good, and they do it. And that's.
I didn't think about that before I said it, but I think it sticks to the wall.
I think so, because they're the great example of home brewers who take it to the next level.
I
they
agree.
still have that carefree air of experimenting and, hey, let's see if this works. And it's two brothers. They get in there and they make great beers. They use a Belgian yeast strain for all of their beers.
Yep.
So that really impacts the flavor of everything they do. They'll go find stuff out of their yard and put it in the beer, twigs and branches and things like that. Not anything
sometimes
gross.
good, sometimes bad.
Sure.
Depends on what they're throwing in.
Yeah,
This here's a dandelion ale.
Hey, if somebody's got a batch of apples that, they'll give them for free, they'll throw it in there. The Grassroots IPA, to me, is a great IPA because it is what I like about IPAs, and the fact that it's clean and crisp and there's some hoppiness to it. But it's not what I don't like about IPAs, which is a lot of times people get a little too heavy-handed with the bittering hops, and they forget.
I like that. So why is the definition of a great IPA have to be elevated IBUs? Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
People on the West Coast, hippies, hippies.
Well,
they mess everything up.
It's more IPAs are definitely trending towards the flavorful side of hops versus the bitter side of hops, and this one definitely doesn't have that real bitter characteristic that you can get sometimes.
And I think maybe it just took people a while to learn that you don't have to throw all of your hops in at 90 minutes.
No, please
throw them in at 5 and flame out. Do that. But these guys, they've figured that out.
Just toss them in whenever, man.
Yeah, just throw them in whenever. But I just really think this is a good, very approachable beer. It is flavorful without being overwhelming, and I would give it a 4.
The body should really not make that sound. Good old boy John, what'd you think of Calfkiller Grassroots?
Like Dave, I really enjoy the beer. I think it's a I would lean towards more maybe a pale ale versus an IPA, just because of the lack of real bite that you get in bitterness. It doesn't have a lot of citrusy characteristics that you would get from a traditional West Coast IPA.
Right.
And I think that may be the blend of hops that they're using. I'm betting they got some, more earthy English style, maybe traditional noble hops maybe in there blended with that. But I do get a lot of piney notes. I do get a lot of a little bit of citrus character. The one thing I did note in this particular sample is to me it's a little grassy. I got a little bit of a grassy characteristic. And
I'm smiling at John because when I tell you about my tasting notes, keep going. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
I do get a little bit of grassy notes from it, and I think that it comes through. I smell the grassy notes, and then I also taste them. So I think it's maybe even. I don't know if it's overly hopped, if it's the age of the beer that we're drinking, maybe even. But the Belgian characteristic, I think I get a little bit of that in the thing, and I think the cloudiness of it too tends to lend to the fact that it's the Belgian yeast.
And as it warms up in your glass, cask, you're going to get more of that Belgian. The yeast is going to come out a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's the thing I noticed is that the sweetness is coming through a bit more and less of the hops on the forward part of it as it's warmed up a bit. So, what's your SUDS rating on this, good old boy John?
SUDS rating was a 3.
Wow, okay. For Calfkiller Grassroots. So I was laughing at John because when he was going through, I was like, okay. I'm like, what the heck am I going to talk about? So my tasting notes were fresh. I really thought, I mean, if there's the definition of the word fresh when it came to beer, this was it. As we open this up, piney hops, and it has a little bit of a citrus scent, which are two of the, so that's why I was laughing.
Well, great minds think alike, I think is what they say.
Well,
right?
Plus everybody laughs at John, so don't worry about it.
But I'm just wondering whose palate is busted at the end of the day. Mine is, but anyway. I've really enjoyed the beer that Calfkiller has been producing, and it's been one of these moments where I've watched a homebrewer evolving into a commercial space, and over a wide variety of time. I usually I don't particularly think of really great beer coming out of Sparta, Tennessee.
It's a mecca.
Right. But
it may be from now on.
But I hate to say it, but you go where the water goes, and they're right on the. I think the name of it is the Calfkiller River. That's what their namesake is after, and I think that's contributing to the quality of the beer, but. All right, so certainly I would say that I'm a Belgian, yeast head, at the end of the day. I'll own up to that. It's the first step of recovery, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Admit you have a problem.
The problem.
Yeah, right.
That is step one, I believe.
Boy, I don't know. There's a long list of problems. Maybe I should go write those down.
Well, just take one at a time,
Right,
one at a time.
problem.
Man.
One problem at a time?
Baby steps.
All right. Is that East Carolina barbecue or West Carolina barbecue? Is that the first
Lexington
step?
style.
I don't know. But, I really have enjoyed watching Don and Dave evolve over time, and the style of the beers that I've seen that the market has hit for them. This is one of the earlier styles that they produced was the Grassroots, and I've really enjoyed all of the beers for the most part that they have produced. I would comment I had earlier. I'm sitting here kind of pawning over it a little bit about thinking that is maybe another style of Dogfish head style type of a brewer, which is saying, why do I have to stick a label on it and aspire to a style? Why don't I create great beer and then figure out what it is on the back end? And I would describe that as the Sergio brothers. Yeah. And the best terms and the style of beers that they create is they truly just toss it, chuck it to the wind. Yeah. But at the same time, I like the fact that they have paid attention to some of the essential components of brewing great beer, which is great water, great ingredients, and really paying attention to the quality of what they're producing at the end of the day. I think that they have definitely nailed the ability of reproducing things time and time again. J. Henry is another really great perennial that they make quite a bit, and
that's actually my favorite beer that they do make. Actually, it's a really good version.
So, but we're not sipping this beer here today, but I don't mind talking it up. Which is one of my favorite Calfkiller beers is Sergio's Old Evil Ass Bullshit Ale. It sounds like the most complicated name of a beer that you can come up with. You know, it needs like an acronym. Like sucks or something. Yeah. But it just
Soba.
What was a hang time on that? Like 3.2 seconds.
Hey man, I don't spell that well. All right, give me a break.
I need more beer to spell well. But it's just one of those things that we talked a little bit about some of the difficulties that folks like Sergio Brothers are having, which is capacity and distribution. Yeah. So
can't make it fast enough.
They can't make it fast enough. They can't make enough of it, and they have not transitioned into distributing in bottles yet. Yep. And so it's made a little bit. You have to navigate. Yeah. do you guys know, have they expanded distribution outside of Tennessee yet?
I don't
think so.
I
don't
heard.
think so.
I
think it's in the works, but
I've been hearing hints that they were going to move to Alabama.
Yeah, I would.
Was I think the targeted state?
Yeah,
that they were aiming for next, but
I can see that because of their distributor having a connection to some Alabama breweries down there.
Straight to ale, different
straight to ale.
things.
And, I know the distributor that they're working with as well, and I would certainly say that Straight to Ale is a common distributor that they share between the two of them, and it's certainly finding good availability, at least on draft in the southeast part of the U.S. for a lot of Calfkiller. But the thing that I always find very interesting about Calfkiller is the hang time on getting it. I mean, I literally am on like 3 different distribution, text messages, and you would think as many connections as I have, I would know about it well in advance of everybody else to be able to get some, but I'm telling you, I have to stand in line just with every other Goomba to get half a growler.
I've been to the brewery, and you have to go and for people who want to do brewery tours, and I've done a bunch around the country. That is the best brewery tour I've ever been on. I literally stood in the one room that is their brewery while they gave me beer in between running around doing brewing. They were they were switching out hoses and chilling and cleaning and doing all these things, and they'd stop, grab me a beer, bring it back to me. I mean, I'm telling you, dude, that's the royal treatment.
Well,
but you get an understanding of why their capacity, what their capacity is and what the limits are, because it's 2 guys in a converted barn, with
converted dairy equipment, they converted themselves.
I know,
and that makes the magic of the beer even that stronger, because they're taking, that is homebrewing. That's what homebrewing really is, taking something that was meant to be for this purpose, repurposing it and turning it into delicious beer. They're doing that on a huge scale.
They are truly taking that homebrew mindset to the commercial brewery and using what they have, their skill set in general, which is based in construction and contractors, and doing what they do best. And they happen to be really good at brewing beer. They also happen to be very good at building their own equipment, so why not take advantage?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I really I'm glad that we got to chat not just about Grassroots itself today, but really about what I consider a really great brewery in the making.
Up and comer.
And I'm telling you, when they expand distribution and move to bottles, I'm going to be at the front of the line.
Oh yeah, I'll be fighting you for a spot.
Very easily. And I think one of the things that I've observed, we've talked about as a craft beer bubble, reality or myth, and other common elements about creating brew pubs and startup breweries in general is this constant pattern that everybody seems to make like the same 5 styles of beer, and it's like, wow, do I seriously have to taste one more amber ale? I'm going to blow my
You've got to have a pale,
I know,
a pilsner, an amber, a stout,
So I guess one of the other interesting trends that I have noticed is the difference between people that are committing to all Belgian yeast. And so I've taken a swing through North Carolina very recently, and I noticed that Foothills is if I had to say that there was a clone of Calfkiller, I would say it would be Foothills Brewery in North Carolina. There are a couple others that breweries that I've run across that also have a very similar commitment to Belgian yeast, and so I've seen some similar traction and similar reaction to when people are committing to a common style characteristic along the way, that setting them a little bit apart from everybody else.
Well, the Belgian yeast, 5-10 years ago, when startups started, they tended to use a very clean yeast because you could do a lot of different beers with it, and they didn't want the yeast to interfere with what they were doing from a grain bill perspective or a hop perspective. Yeah. And now I think beers are leaning, and the landscape of brewing is leaning towards more diverse, more flavorful beers that you can to 1056 just doesn't do it anymore. And California ale yeast is very clean, and it's a very good for an IPA. But Belgian yeast strains are kind of the next big thing, I think, behind maybe sour beers. And Belgian yeast strains are very easy to deal with. They're not picky in particular. Very forgiving, and they also, you can do a variety of beers with them, and you can restrain the flavor characteristics of them and turn them into a somewhat clean yeast. But if you let them kind of do their thing, they can also be really, really flavorful, and the characteristics are great.
I think something that everyone should really keep in mind is, if you love beer, is that brewers don't make beer. Brewers make wort, or basically sugar water. Brewers make sugar water. Yeast makes beer.
Yep. There you go.
And Belgian yeast, like them or hate them, the Belgians have been making great beers
a long time,
longer than anybody, really. And so there are a million different uses for a Belgian yeast, depending on temperature and the different sugars you feed it.
It's very versatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I shared my SUDS rating real quick on Calfkiller Grassroots, and I got to talking. It was 4 for Calfkiller Grassroots. So next up is going to be good old boy John, and he is going to talk about his beer that he's brought.
I brought Crooked Stave's Oculus Dexter, which is a limited release beer. It's really hard to find. I was in Denver for GABF, and
is all good beer in Colorado?
I don't know if it's all there, but but a lot of it starts there. And it's a brand new brewery. They are primarily oak fermented beers. Most of their beers all of their beers have Brettanomyces as the primary fermentation. This beer in particular that I brought, Oculus Dexter, it has kind of their house strain, which is a little bit of everything. It's got Brett, it's got Lacto, it's got PDO, multiple strains of each in here. This beer is primary fermented with Brett, and it's oak aged for 12 months in white wine barrels, and they add Chardonnay grapes to those barrels to add that little extra characteristics. One of the first things I wrote down was it definitely is a sipper, much more winey than it would be your traditional beer. It's very tart. It is not an introductory beer that you want to introduce your friends to sour beers to, unless they just really like sweet tarts and sour stuff.
Hey, I got a bottle that's turned down here in the cellar.
Exactly.
Let me know what you think of it.
It is, if they're vinegar,
that happens more often than you might think.
This beer it's very tart, it's very sour, but it is so good. I can drink this beer all day long. It's very dry. It cleans the palate really well. I think what most people get scared about with sour beers is that it's going to be overpowering. But if you don't drink this like a chugger, you're going to really taste every little bit of complexity, all the different characteristics. You're going to taste the wine grapes. You're going to taste the oak barrels. You're going to taste a little bit of Brettanomyces and all the different bacterias and things that are in this beer. And it's just a great beer. I wish it was more mass produced, and I wish you could get it around here a little bit easier. But and I do know that in general, Crooked Stave is expanding production and building an actual brewery.
You need to find a good beer mule coming back and forth from Colorado.
I do. I need to find somebody that can make the run for me every now and then.
We need to find some college kid or somebody who needs money.
Yeah, or traveling salesman or something.
What's your job? Beer mule.
Yeah. Exactly. Hey. I just mark it up 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
Back and forth.
You know what? That might be my new enterprise.
Beer mule distribution.
Yeah. I go all the way to the West Coast.
Breaking one liquor law at a time.
Exactly. Hey, what's trafficking? What can you get for trafficking?
It's like Smoking the Bandit, 2013.
Whatever it takes, man.
But it's a very puckering beer. It'll dry your palate out really, really well. But my SUDS
Are
rating
you
on
reading
this-
my tasting notes all day today?
Well,
Anyway, go
I'm
ahead.
telling you, it's really, really nice.
Your SUDS rating is going to
But
be...
my SUDS rating is a 5, of course. This is, again, one of my best sour, one of my favorite sour beers.
Yeah. Well, I am so glad that you brought this, John. I just... and it was very interesting that you literally almost were reading off some of my tasting notes word for word. So when we opened this up, I looked across and the first word that I started to write down was actually Chardonnay, and I knew it was some white, and I thought that it was some type of white wine barrel, that this was in, and I wrote down it had a buttery nose, and a very much a Chardonnay grape nose, right off the bat. I wrote down it had lactobacillus in it, and I was surprised that you said it had multiple strains in it. That was the one that kind of caught my attention, was the lactobacillus. But I did write, wow, this is pucker time. But the last comment that I had about it is very reflective of exactly what I think about. This is really just a wonderful beer, and a lot of depth. Great layers, to this. It was great out of the bottle. It's great as it's warmed up. It's really held up very well. No, this is not amateur sour time for this at all. This is definitely not what I would consider in the approachable sour series. But it's just a really great beer. And now I'm pissed that I can't find this, and I'll go to great lengths now to haul back more of this in front of us. So my SUDS rating for this, for the Crooked Stave Oculus Dexter, is going to be a 5. Listen to that hang time, give me another. And I don't say that very often, do I, guys? So I did not hand that out.
And in true kind of cheesy fashion, I've got one bottle of this left in my cellar, and I will wait.
50.
I will wait. Honestly, I will wait until for those who I'm a Dexter fan, the TV show.
Okay.
Its last season is coming up this year, and on the season finale, this will be the beer
That's
that
what
I'm
you're gonna-
drinking
yeah.
during the season finale.
So you're combining
in true-
entertainment and entertainment.
in true cheesy fashion, I will use Oculus Dexter as my season finale.
Good old boy Dave, what'd you think of Crooked Stave Oculus Dexter?
Well, my first comment that I wrote down was punch in the face.
That's about right.
But then it quickly,
But in a good way.
Yeah, a punch, a punch in the face from someone you love. But then it really mellows quickly, and it does have that dry white wine sort of taste, that pucker, make your lips pucker kind of thing. But what I really like about it is that as I'm tasting it, I'll take one sip and I'll taste something, and then I'll take another sip and I'll get another piece of it. So you can really you wouldn't want to chug this.
No.
I don't think you could hold it down if you chugged it. But
You might want to take a Tums if you chug
yeah,
the whole
it's
thing.
like there is definitely that vinegar aspect to it. But this is a beer
This
that
requires cheese or bread. with it.
yeah, if you want to say that you appreciate sours, then you would have to appreciate this beer because it is what a sour should be. And I would give it a 5.
Wow, how about that? All the way around. Well, absolutely rock on, John. I mean, wow, just a wonderful beer to bring. I am so glad that I know you. And maybe
I wish I had more of it.
Why? Maybe we'll get a good beer mule, alone to haul this around for us. 'cause
This is the kind of beer that you want to watch people drink just so you can see the look on their face when they drink it.
Well, the thing about it too is the more I drink it, the more your mouth starts to water and kind of want more of it. It dries you out. Your mouth starts to water again, and it's really, really nice
Absolutely.
in that way.
Well, next up is the beer that I brought, which is Burton Baton's Dogfish Head. And I'm sorry, Dogfish Head. It's Burton Baton. I said that backwards there. So Dogfish Head is a brewery that's very popular. And unfortunately, they do suffer from a limited distribution model. And there are some parts of the U.S. and Canada, as well as Mexico, that you cannot get this. Very sought-after beers all the way across. This is a beer that I really love to talk about, though, and that's the reason why I brought this, show and tell. I could talk up Dogfish Head all day long, and while I enjoyed our conversation around the Sergio brothers, I'd love to talk about Sam and the whole crew at Dogfish quite a bit. I really want to talk about this beer. Burton Baton is one of the early stages of beers that they decided to come out with. It has been around for, I think, upwards of 8 years now that they've been making this. This is a higher ABV. This is swinging around 10%. And I think the classification of this is just... it's almost insulting. It's considered an American double or an Imperial IPA, and I'm sorry, but there needs to be a better category to describe this. One of the things that I like about this beer is the artistry that has come into play, crossing over in between winemaking and beer making. The way that this beer is made is they actually create a Old English style ale to begin with, and then they create an Imperial IPA, and they're blending the two, and then they age the whole thing after that. And I just it's the artistry of blending that I enjoy about this time and time again, and it's falling in that same category of, I think this is something you could pull off once, but it is the repetitive nature of being able to do this that I've enjoyed over many different batches of Burton Baton. And every time I think that I have it licked as to that's a good batch or that's not such a good batch or whatever, the Immort Ale is another series that's very close to this, but at least for the Burton Baton, I'm like, wow, I just have no idea how you really nail the ability of blending so well as it comes to beer. I think that it is one concept in beer making that has been grossly overlooked.
Early on, it was kind of frowned upon. Even
I know
a lot. People felt like blending, and what people don't realize is, blending is. I mean, it's done across the board in a lot of very big, very large breweries that most of us don't want to talk about.
Well, and I keep on wondering if it's going to play into marketing terms where people are going to use the term to say this is a single batch brew as opposed to a blended brew. And I think that I can see that there are advantages of both sides of the coin. We talked about another beer earlier that was a triple, a different episode, but the simplicity that I could never see, blending, to achieve, a triple with the simplicity of the ingredients. But with this, there's just no way you can come close to achieving this type of a beer without blending. There's no way you could even begin to try and brew this in one batch.
Well, that's how they do like a lot of the lambics and things, right?
Yep.
They'll have one that was maybe aged for 2 years,
several different years.
And then it's kind of like making a good, Scotch or a good special edition bourbon or something, Yeah, you go round and round with it like that,
We're just hearing some background noise,
But anything that you can do, like we were talking about the Sergio brothers, or like Sam and the guys at Dogfish Head, anything you can do that gives you more options to provide more flavors. If I could brew something that tasted like this, just straight out with grain, yeast, and hops and water. Wow, that'd be great. But
to be honest, it opens up the whole perspective. It opens up the possibilities of what beers you can produce. If you're able to blend correctly, and blend, I don't know, Consistently, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it would be hard to produce this beer without blending, like you said.
Impossible.
Impossible, and it's impossible to repeat the process if you didn't know how to blend. And Sam and the guys at Dogfish know what they're doing.
Well, there's an
when they get
artistry to
this.
it, you know.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and Sam has even said, it got to a point with his company where he knew he was a very good brewer, and he built it, but he knew the point where he could kind of turn a lot of it over to really good brewers, and he would collaborate with them and give ideas and things, but let them manage it, And even just like with wines that you blend different grapes, different things, why should you limit beers in any way?
Well, so my tasting notes around Burton Baton are complex oak, just layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of flavor. It just keeps coming, and I just again, it's in that same category. The only thing that I don't like about this is they don't distribute it in 5-gallon jugs. So really just fantastic beer. My SUDS rating for Burton Baton is a 5. Good old boy Dave, you were definitely talking about this. Any other tasting notes you had to share with our audience here?
What I would say is that when I was inhaling the aroma in the glass, I was trying to stick my whole head into the glass. The flavor is very complex, like you said, and great, but the aroma of this beer is possibly one of the best things I've ever smelled. If they had a deodorant or like a car air freshener or something, or
Dogfish deodorant, I like that.
Don't let Sam know.
I'm not. He's gonna. They'll do it soon.
Yeah, he puts his name on a lot of stuff, but what is it like? 2/3 of taste is smell or something like that.
Yep.
And this beer, as it especially, we've been talking about this a lot lately. As beers warm up, you get to tell what the beer really is. Mm-hmm. And the more it warms up, the more those aromas come out. It's solid, man. I would give this beer, I'd give it a 5.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate your tasting notes around this. Good old boy John, what do you think of Burton Baton from Dogfish Head?
It's an excellent, example of what blending can do. I have the most notes of any of the beers that we have today on this beer, and it's because every time I taste it, I kind of get something different. I taste something different. I've got oak, I've got vanilla, I've got a sweetness from the alcohol.
Are you reading my tasting notes?
I know.
I swear to God, everything I've written down, you put down.
I've got caramel.
That's why I don't write anything down, because John just steals it.
Yeah. I've got caramel, I've got almost smoky. Even I got a little bit of smoke character in there. And then you get to the hoppiness of it. It's not a bracingly bitter beer, but there is that hop complexity and that hop bitterness that really balances the beer out. But then I wrote down, and underlined in capital letters, just complexity. It is a very complex beer. I don't think it could be brewed in a single batch. It's just impossible, because I don't think you could brew like an old ale with a bunch of hops in it and get this same product. And because I'm not sure it's a 50-50 blend even. They may say it's 50-50, but there's no chance that this is a 50-50 blend of an old ale and a big IPA. I think it's more probably like 60-40 or 70-30 even in some batches. I would think it probably just changes from batch to batch.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. I think it probably depends on how they look at each of those batches, and they probably taste 20 30 different proportions, and then they dial it in and they go, that's it for these two batches.
It's the Artisan.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I need to get that job. That's the job I need to taste all the different combinations.
Well, if I'm talking into a microphone, sounds like a good job, right, Dave?
There you go.
It's all right.
And the thing is, like you said earlier, to classify it as a double IPA is a little bit of a slap in the face, because it's really not a double IPA. Yeah. I think it can kind of fall into that category, and I think that's probably what it's closest to if you had to pick a category. but I don't think it would. If you were to go down what a double IPA is, this wouldn't fit in the category, but in a good way. I think that to me, double IPAs tend to be too hoppy and too bitter and a little bit over the top.
It's just so far away from that.
It is. It's so far. It's more complex than a double IPA
but
would
you
ever
have
be.
You have to name it something.
Yeah, well,
you have to call it something.
Brewers.
Dave, you do not get to label anything.
Brewers don't. In a lot of cases, brewers don't want to label their beers because it tends to pigeonhole them a little bit. I think that drinkers of beer tend to label beers as a double IPA or whatever, and this one maybe has gotten a little bit of a bad rap for being a double IPA, and I just don't think it is. I think it's a very complex beer. I think it's very good.
If I just saw double IPA and that's all I knew about it, and I bought it, like if I was someone who just I really like hoppy double IPAs, you would not. It's not to say that you wouldn't like it, but you would not be.
You'd be disappointed if you thought this was a double IPA. I really would.
Yeah.
But it would open your world up to a whole different style of beer or style of brewing.
Oh, you'd go and buy a double IPA from somebody else and go, "Wow, that sucks."
Yeah.
Well, even if you took a bottle of this and then a bottle of their 90-minute IPA, and you put them next to each other, it's a world of difference.
And see, 90 minute is what they blend with this. This is a 90-minute blend. That's the bitterness that you get. So, but my SUDS rating was I gave it a 4.
Wow. Well, there you have it. 3 really great beers that we've been able to share with you on this show and tell series, and we hope you've enjoyed the discussion. I know I have. I mean, you guys really brought some great beers to talk about. We got to do this. Can we do it tomorrow again? I'm sorry. It's just really good. We really have a lot of great beers to chat about on future SUDS episodes, and I really thank you for joining us for this segment. Good old boy Dave, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Appreciated it.
And good old boy John, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
If you guys come again and bring the beer like this, wow, we're going to definitely do this again.
We've only scratched the surface, man.
I'm telling you, for sure. Well, this is going to be a good series if we run more of these, so I look forward to it. Well, whatever you've done over the last 40 minutes, I really appreciate you joining us for this. Hopefully you have a good cold one in your hand that you're enjoying. And for tuning in, you can contact us anytime here at Sip Suds and Smokes at sipsudsandsmokes@gmail.com. You can catch us on Facebook, on Twitter, where all kinds of tasting notes about all the stuff that we never get to chat about is on that Twitter feed. And welcome to your comments through iTunes or any of the outlets. Thank you once again for joining us. For right now, this is good old boy Mike. I'm going to ask you to keep on sipping.
Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things. Cream-colored ponies and crisp apple strudels, doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sip Suds and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see y'all next time.